Show starts in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of Champions Belt Club podcast. And I'm here with my partner in crime, Tony T. How you doing tonight, buddy?
I am good, buddy. I love that Stampede belt behind you, and that display box looks phenomenal.
Thank you, sir. It's one of my prized possessions, made by Muhammad Arham at Hamyar Championship Belts. Plug for Arham. It's one of my favorite belts.
I should get him to make me that belt. That looks sick.
Oh, it's one of my favorites, man. He worked really hard with me on that one. I really appreciated the work he put into it because there was a version of the belt that was circulating around the community that got circulated about 2 years ago, and it had a lot of wrong names on the plates or names that were missing. So, Arham and I put our heads together, and he worked with me on it, and we've got it updated. So it's got all the accurate names and all the accurate information on it now. So I love that belt.
That's sick.
So how you doing tonight, man?
I'm good. Cedric says, Tony, did you get the license plate of the truck that hit you?
There we go.
I did. You guys can see my black eye. It was not a fight. I'm busted open under here. It wasn't wrestling. It was softball. I was running to catch a ball, and it nipped into the sun, and the guy hit it really hard. And I had my glove up to catch it, and it hit my glove and just went right through and hit me here and busted me right open across here.
Ta-da!
Yeah. Shit. And then I get the the hard way. I got it the hard way for sure. So
see, I would have made up this story about 5 Marines in a bar and I
lost my smile.
I lost my smile, brother.
Yeah. Vince, I've lost my smile. Yeah. I went to wrestling training tonight, and the boys were like, "Are you going to get in?" And the coach was like, "No, let's let Tony rest." My whole skull, other side. My whole skull, like I could feel it right around in here, and I don't want to bust it open. I didn't go for stitches. I didn't go to the hospital and get checked. I just couldn't be bothered. Put some glue on it and put a Band-Aid on it. And
crazy glued it.
Disinfectant, yeah.
Hardcore. Tony T being hardcore.
It hurt. Yeah,
I bet, man.
Yeah.
That stuff flies at pretty high velocity. So
yeah, it hurt. Like it felt like I've had a couple fights playing hockey. That's how I have a dark tooth. I got punched in the mouth in a fight in hockey, and it just felt like a super sucker punch. Like I just got nailed. Had it been more to the temple or the orbital bone, I could have been in real trouble. But it was a good shot. Yeah, definitely a good shot.
And the softball won.
And it did. Yeah, it sure did.
Well, we're glad you're here, and we're glad you're all right, brother.
But hey, I'm still here. The softball's gone, man.
That's right.
In the bottom of the lake.
There you go.
Anyways.
So you're having a good week other than a black eye?
Not too bad. How about yourself?
Yeah, man, I can't complain. I'm pretty, just chilling after a long day of work and here to talk wrestling and belts and all
How
things
did
collecting.
you find Backlash? I think we should start off with some
Yeah, man. Let's get into that, actually. So we have a little segment every week we like to do, folks, called Dirt Sheets and Draws. Dirt Sheets and Draws. So we're getting into Backlash this weekend. Took place in Puerto Rico. The WWE brought us Backlash, and there were some outstanding sort of results this weekend. A couple of really good matches. One match that's getting a lot of conversation, a lot of language after the pay-per-view was, of course, the match between Bad Bunny and Damian Priest. Shout out to Damian Priest for his work in that particular program. These guys that come in, these celebrities, and I mean, shout out to Bad Bunny as well for the work he's putting in. And he and Logan Paul lately has sort of been raising the game for celebrities that sort of jump into this stuff and sort of take part in these pay-per-views. They've been really sort of up in the ante. But Damian Priest has been making him look like $1 million. So shout out to Damian on that. That's some great work. But we saw the return of the Attitude Era Savio Vega. And we had the return of Carlitos, who is practically royalty in Puerto Rico, being the son of Carlos Colon, longtime promoter and star wrestler in Puerto Rico. And he was over like crazy. Yeah, what'd you think?
So I didn't watch Backlash. I got a message from Jamie Bonner and Kate Breton, a good friend of mine who's also in our belt group here. Ben Walker says hello. Good evening, Ben. Thanks for watching, bud. Thank you, Cedric, for watching as well.
Good evening, Ben. Thanks for hanging out with us.
So I saw some of the highlights, and I thought Carlito coming back and the pop he got, like, he's over. And I really think. I wish, like, he's one of those guys that when he first came and I spit in the face, those aren't cool. It was kind of whatever. But you see him come back, he's jacked. He looks great. Like,
he's in great shape. Yeah, better shape than he was before. Yeah, I would even say. I think he looks really great.
I remember when he showed up at that Royal Rumble, though. He looked pretty freaking good.
Yeah.
Like, but I just hope they do some stuff with him because it seemed to go over. Like the Latino World Order. That's cool, man. Like, that's
well, I mean, MVP's run during the COVID era there in the studio all started with an appearance at a Royal Rumble. So sometimes that's how this stuff works out. They take the temperature of the audience when somebody makes an appearance, and sometimes they extend it. So hopefully that'll be the case. It'll be interesting to see what they do with the LWO as well, because I mean, far be it from me to say that WWE sometimes programs things just to pander to specific audiences in Puerto Rico, but it's possible and hopeful maybe that they're going to continue to do something with this stable, and it wasn't just a setup for this particular pay-per-view. But I guess we'll have to wait and see.
It's a good launching pad for it. And I think it could be something because you got to think, like, California has a lot of a strong Latino presence. There's a strong fan base of Latinos that love their wrestling. Mm-hmm. So I think it makes sense. It pays homage to Eddie Guerrero and the ones and when they did it in the WCW, right? So I think there's something that can be really done with it. I really wish I'd known it was on because being injured, I would have watched. You mentioned Bianca Belair got to her 400 days as
Raw. So as of tonight on Raw, Bianca will hit the 400 plus mark for days as Raw Women's Champion. So she now holds the record as the longest reigning Raw Women's Champion.
Good for her.
Had a good match with she had a really good match with Io Sky. And interestingly enough, she was starting to get booed. So she was starting to get the heat from the crowd, and she leaned into it a little bit. I wouldn't say she was working as a heel specifically, but
No.
she definitely leaned into it during the match a little bit, and so it's interesting to see if the crowd going forward is going to flip her.
Yeah,
And which is oftentimes what happens when somebody's dominant for a certain amount of time.
they get sick of it.
You know, it's this starts to happen sometimes, and people start to resent, audiences start to resent them more than celebrate them.
Mm.
So she might be on her way into a heel run in the near future. We'll have to see.
And what did you mention about the bloodline?
So they're already starting to hint. So we had already seen with the brand split that the between the Usos and Solo Sikoa and Heyman and Roman over on the SmackDown brand. We were already starting to see fractures in the storyline, so they just started to continue to further sort of hint possible problems within the group themselves. The Usos were miscommunicating with Solo constantly through the match. It almost cost them the match. They still won and they still stuck together in the end, but they're definitely starting to lay heavy hints that there are going to be issues with them going forward.
You know, it makes me, I mentioned this last week on our first episode about the Hurt Business, how I really liked what was going on there. They seem to be getting a lot of popularity, and you have this bloodline thing going for a while, and it's the best thing. It was with Sammy, the best thing going, right?
No, for sure.
And I think they sometimes, like, why can't they just keep them together? I know, like, it would get stale and boring, but I don't think it's at that point yet. Like, I think they're doing it too soon. But I don't write for the WWE, you know, clearly. So I just, as a fan, that's what I see there. But anyways, let's talk about the last one that we have here on the picture of Cody and Brock.
Cody and Brock Lesnar. So this was an interesting match going into this. Of course, there's been quite a bit of public controversy about Cody not going over at WrestleMania on Roman. And so the big question was, now that they're programming him against Brock, is Cody going to go over, and if he does, how are they going to make that work against somebody as dangerous, presentably dangerous as Brock Lesnar, who's really been ripping through the WWE for the last 3, 4, 5 years. He really has been he's been a world beater for quite a while, and he's obviously a legitimate MMA champion, a legitimate monster, and so he's perceived as somebody that's difficult to get one over on.
Yeah.
And so it was interesting to see how they were going to program this. I think they did a decent job with this. I really do. I think that they managed to make Brock continue to look like an obstacle and a difficult opponent. He didn't really lose a lot in this. Cody took a lot of punishment, which he had to do to make this look believable. And he barely squeaked it out at the end. Lesnar had him in a Kimura arm lock from underneath, and Cody essentially rolled him up and got just a really weak looking pin on him and sort of got out of there. So Lesnar didn't really lose anything in this match, in the sense like he didn't look weak in it at all. He was dominating most of it, and Cody came out looking tougher. Came out looking like he definitely got a bit of a rub off Brock from this. So I think it was as well booked as it could be.
Cool, good stuff. No, it's good to see when a veteran guy. I mean, Cody's been around for a long time. It's not like he's young or new. But it's good to see when the veterans pay it forward and they do the job for these guys for the story,
I think Brock's kind of in that position now. Like, I don't think he's imminently going to be retiring anytime soon, like not within the next year. But I think he's in a position now where he can use all of that heat that he's built and all of that shine that he's built over the last couple of years, beating The Undertaker, beating Roman in the past and other wrestlers. I think he can take that and he can use that to benefit the new people that are coming up. And I think that's a good way to use them and a good way to do business. So
yeah, oh, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. The transition that he's going to make and doing that for these guys is fantastic.
The other big bit of news that came up, of course, from the WWE was the announcement of the WWE World Heavyweight Championship tournament, and that these following 12 wrestlers, are the names that have been announced as who will compete for the belt. Of course, we have Seth Rollins, We have Austin Theory. We have AJ Styles. We have Bobby Lashley. We have Finley, or not Finley. Gosh, Irish. Same country. Wrong wrestler. We have Finn Balor.
Yeah.
We have Rey Mysterio. We have Edge, Damian Priest, The Miz, Sheamus, Shinsuke Nakamura, and of course Cody Rhodes. So these are our 12. They're going to do four 3-man matches, 2 on Raw, 2 on SmackDown. They haven't announced the brackets, although I'm sure they will tonight. They will take it down to 2 wrestlers on each program, and those 2 wrestlers will wrestle for the 2 final spots, and they will be competing for the new championship. What do you think?
My first thought when I saw this graphic was, where the hell is Drew McIntyre in this? Drew McIntyre is, I love Drew McIntyre, as you can tell.
Yeah. From what the little bit I can glimmer from the various dirt sheets and the various news sites, he is healing up some old wounds. He's nursing some injuries. He's off TV for the most part right now. His plan was just to get to the WrestleMania, and he knew that was going to be a really physical match. And then the game plan was always for him to take a little time off after that. So essentially, I think he's not in this particular match because he's trying to rest and recover on some nagging wounds and injuries. Some rumors, some of the dirt sheets are saying that they're considering another heel run for him, that they're going to flip him when he comes back. And so he's maybe somebody that they're seeing as a potential challenger down the road for this title, perhaps.
Okay.
So he's definitely on the Raw brand. We know that's the case. So he's certainly somebody that could certainly fall in line for this down the road.
One of the other things too is Bray Wyatt was another guy that I noticed not there. Now I wonder what they're doing with him. And I'm not saying the guys that everyone there is totally deserving. The 2 guys that probably are the least, and this is no disrespect to them at all, because they're younger, they're newer, are Damian Priest and Austin Theory. And if is Theory not the U.S. champion?
Theory is the current U.S. champion. Yeah.
Well, I don't to me, I wouldn't have put. But again, not a booker, I don't do this. I would have had Bray Wyatt, and I probably would have had Drew McIntyre, and Theory and Priest would have been the 2 I would have pulled out. Even though I love what they're doing, I love both of them. I think they're doing really good stuff.
I'm actually surprised, especially after his match at WrestleMania and his popularity over the last couple of months, certainly last year. I'm actually really surprised Gunther's not in there.
Oh my God, I know. And then see so if I was to put Gunther in, I would have pulled The Miz.
Mm-hmm.
Because
so if you were going to go down this list,
Edge is a legend, a heavyweight, won the title before. Same with Rey Mysterio. You've got Shinsuke, who's phenomenal worker.
Yeah.
Cody Rhodes, who is probably going to get a title. I don't know which one.
Mm-hmm.
We got.
Well, it's an interesting thing, right? So, we know that Rey Mysterio is clearly on his way towards retirement.
Yeah.
He's been essentially put into the Hall of Fame, and so now it's just a question of, you're probably going to see him transition more and more into sort of a management role or a mentorship role over the next little while, and then perhaps finally hang it up. Edge has made it public that he's not planning to go much more than a year, and then he's going to hang it up. He's only got about a year left on his contract, and then he's planning to sort of hang the boots up. So that's an interesting sort of storyline there. Certainly, there are 2 legends who are close to retirement. So do they put the belt on them to give them one last hurrah, or are they there just to sort of create and also just to expand the possibilities of where this storyline could lead.
Yeah.
Miz is one of those guys that they can always kind of program into something, and he's always sort of perceived as somebody that could potentially win something. He's always somebody that sort of steals the title or gets away with the title.
Yeah.
So I don't see him going over in the tournament. Shinsuke is somebody that has long been sort of perceived as somebody that hasn't been well booked in the WWE.
Yeah.
It would be an amazing thing for somebody to be sort of the first sort of what I would consider the first sort of Japanese style wrestler from Japan who would actually win a world title in the WWE, which would be amazing.
Yeah.
Having already been the IWGP Intercontinental and heavyweight champion, it would be amazing for him to win the title. That would be especially for fans of the Japanese style.
Yeah.
AJ Styles certainly is always deserving in that spot. He has not been as active this year as he has been in the past. Lashley certainly is a contender. Always, he always certainly looks the role of the world champion. So it's hard to say. Austin Theory's been building steady all the way through. He's a young guy for sure, but he's certainly one of the more sort of over people in terms of consistency and storyline, and who the WWE is sort of making a priority.
Oh, he's going to be a world champ one day.
Oh, without question. There's no question. And Cody obviously has got the biggest story in the group. Coming out of WrestleMania, losing to Roman and sort of trying to rebuild himself and sort of make his way back to a world title. I don't know if they put this belt around him or if they continue to sort of starve the audience a little bit more, starve the fans, and not put gold around his waist. It'll be interesting to see where they go. For me, secretly, I'm being a huge fan of Balor and the fact that he was the first Universal Champion and had that ripped away with an injury, shoulder injury. He never really got his run, so it might be interesting to see if they might consider putting the belt on him, but unlikely, but possible. But there are a lot of really interesting storylines in this lineup, actually. If you actually go through and trace it back over the last year or 2 years, there are a lot of very deserving wrestlers in this lineup. So, good job. Good job, WWE.
Yeah, I think so too. The two guys we haven't really mentioned. I started to mention Sheamus.
Sheamus, right? Go for it. Yeah,
and I think he's a big workhorse. He's just a good worker. I really am a fan of his work, and I'm trying to do that more as I've gotten older, because I used to either like you or hate you as a wrestler, as a fan. And the guy at the other end of this, the one guy we didn't talk about, Seth freaking Rollins, who's I think probably been the sort of carrying the, aside from Roman's work, which has been outstanding over the last year and a half, he's been the other sort of workhorse. He's been the go-to guy. Like, they can pretty much fit him in a program with anybody, and he's going to put butts in seats, and he's going to draw attention. So you got to give it up to Seth Rollins. Is he in a position right now where we perceive him as sort of a legitimate contender for a world championship? Maybe or maybe not, just because of the way he's been booked over the last 6 months. But he's certainly somebody that WWE's always been able to lean on, certainly, especially in the last year and a half, 2 years. Well, with him being a former Shield member, and the way him and Roman have come up together, battled, it would be, you could really have the clash of the champions between Seth and Roman if they were both champions. And it's
there's definitely an interesting history there
with all the people there, though. There's so many cool stories you could do. And like Damian Priest is going to have, him and Theory are the future. They're great. I just don't think it's their time yet.
Don't disagree. So that'll be interesting to see how that plays out. Then the next thing I wanted to get into really briefly was, we just recently did a poll in Champions Belt Club, and we like to do a Friday Fantasy tournament, and we like to involve our members as much as possible. So we love it when you guys take part and tell us what you like. And we had 6 options, and the option that won the most votes this go around was top 12 greatest Intercontinental champions of all time. So this upcoming Friday, we're going to do a vote to populate that list. So we are going to create a top 12 list within the group, and these are the people that are going to compete within the tournament to finally get us a number one Intercontinental champion of all time based on the votes of the members within the group. So what do you think? Who can you name off a few of your favorite IC champs over the years?
Oh man, I have a bunch. I had to turn my phone off, so I apologize because it was banging while we've had this show running. Man, for me, the Intercontinental title was the workhorse title. which
Mhm.
it is. And some of the greatest like matches I've ever watched were for that belt.
Oh, for sure.
I'll tell you one of my favorites. It was as a kid, this was the coolest thing ever. You had the Honky Tonk Man, who was like at the time Hogan was the champion. He was the baby face. Everyone loved him. You had the ultimate heel in the Honky Tonk Man
Mhm.
because nobody liked him. Right? He was cocky. He was arrogant, and he held the title for a long time. And they were running a thing at the time that Brutus was going to finally beat him and get the Intercontinental title. Then he had the parasailing accident or the boating accident. I can't remember what it was. And last minute, Vince switched it to the Warrior. And Warrior comes out and squashes him in 13 seconds. And it was like, as a kid, I lost my mind. We were all huge Ultimate Warrior fans. And when he
Mhm.
came out and just destroyed a guy who hadn't lost the belt, he had faced many challengers. He faced Macho Man on a Saturday night's main event, which led to the hey, Dan McKinn, good evening. Led
Good
to the
evening,
men's,
Dan.
right? The first time all 4 WWF champions were in the ring was when the Tag Team Champions Heart Foundation held Macho Man, who was fighting Honky for the IC title, and Miss Elizabeth went and got Hogan. That was the first time all 4 champions that they had at the time were in the ring at the same time.
Historic.
You look back at some of the greats, like the match that Tito Santana and Macho Man had for the title was awesome. Macho winning dirty. Macho
Mhm.
was one of the best Intercontinental champions at the time.
Yeah. And I'm actually curious for anybody that's joining us tonight live, if you'd love to love for you to put some of your favorites down in the comments as we're chatting away here. We'd love to hear from you and hear what you think are some of the better IC champs and maybe some of your favorite matches as well.
Those ladder matches between Razor and Shawn Michaels, the matches that Brett and Shawn had for the IC title were phenomenal.
Mm.
You know,
Mhm.
Rude, Ricky Steamboat, the Ricky Steamboat Macho Man Savage match at WrestleMania 3, arguably the greatest wrestling match ever, right? And it
Awesome.
was phenomenal. You know, Mr. Perfect having the title, Brett winning it from him.
Mm.
There was just so many good. Like I've always loved it, and I was actually remember they retired the IC title for a little bit,
They did, yeah.
and then they
Yeah.
brought it back. That was
Yeah.
to me was sad because and I'm glad it's like Gunther's putting some real shine on it now,
Mhm.
really making it an important title again because
Yep.
it is to me it is one of the best titles in all of professional wrestling.
Well, they've often said in wrestling, and I think it's true, belts don't make wrestlers, wrestlers make belts. And so it's really, who you put on the belt really sort of determines the value of the title.
Mm.
And I think if you look at this poster of wrestlers, I mean, you can really understand why this belt was so valued and so respected for so long. I mean, these are the best of the best when it comes to sort of like technical uh wrestlers and over wrestlers, not just technical wrestlers, but wrestlers that are over and are firing off on all cylinders. So this was definitely an important belt without question. I would argue to say without question when we went WrestleMania 3 is a great example. Definitely people were paying to see Andre and Hogan.
Yes.
But the match that people talked about when the pay-per-view was over was definitely Savage and Steamboat,
Oh,
without question. And it was that kind of work in a match that really stood out. Same with Perfect and Hitman, or Tito and Savage, or Shawn and Razor,
yeah.
with the famous ladder match, of course. And so it's always been that kind of title.
Dan McKinn says, as much as I love the Hitman and Hennig as IC royalty, Honky Tonk Man was the GOAT. I agree. He was the best Intercontinental champion. I hated him. And I think when we were kids, that was a sign of a great heel, was that you hated him.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, and now as an adult, as a guy who's training to wrestle, you look back and he could work. He was great in the ring. Like, he was good, really good. I found it funny that if you look at the poster we have up here right now,
Mm-hmm.
you have guys that they tested the Intercontinental title on to see if they would become WWE champ material. Some of those heels never got that opportunity, but
Mm-hmm.
guys like Macho Man was a heel, but he turned it into the heavyweight title, right? Eventually, Bret Hart,
Absolutely.
Shawn
Yep.
Michaels, the Ultimate Warrior. But then you get guys like Ricky Steamboat and Rick Rude, who were the WCW world champion, right? And they never got that title run, which a guy like Rick Rude could have dethroned Hogan, right? It could have. I mean, he would have been a great heel transition champion. Mr. Perfect would have been a great heel transition champion. So the IC title, great stuff. We could go on all night. We could have a show dedicated just to that.
We might in the near future, actually. So keep that thought. All right, bud. It's time for our next segment, and of course, this is a nod to your very famous and very beloved Belt of the Day, New Belt Day video. So here we go with Belt of the Week. All right, what have you got for us this week, sir?
I'm gonna. Dan McKinn said another quick comment here. Let's throw that up. You hated him at Stampede. He can never be the face in Canada. Honky Tonk made that belt get massive attention. Yeah, hoping someone will beat him.
Facts, definitely the case.
Okay, this belt is one of the heaviest and biggest in my collection.
Ooh, look at that!
Oh my lord, I almost dropped it. No more injuries. The AWA inmate. Can you see that already?
We can. That's the beauty. Look at that.
Massive belts. I don't think I did a new belt day video for this when I got this 3 years ago.
Wow, that is something else.
Really shiny. It's heavy as hell. It is 3 plates stacked. It's massive. So this was made by Muhammad Usman.
Usman. Okay. Shout out to Muhammad Usman.
Yeah. I got it from my friend Paul Zecca, who Paul at the time was selling it back when belts were being sold. Well, they still are sold on Pages. This thing's so big. It's huge. Let's see if I could. Yeah, I'll turn the camera down so you can see it while I talk.
There we go.
So Paul was selling this. I asked him if he'd sell to me. He said he wanted to sell it to someone in the States. He didn't want to sell it up in Canada. So we bantered back and forth. And Paul Zek has actually become one of my really good friends in the belt hobby.
That's awesome.
We message each other quite regularly. I bought this from him. He gave me a decent price on it. And then I ended up buying a couple other belts from him. But this belt I wanted, and there's a reason. I felt that this belt, there's 2 reasons. One, I saw when I was a kid, there was a toy, and you could put the figures in it. The Remco made the anyways. And I always loved belts. And 2, I felt that this belt could have changed wrestling history. And you know where I'm going to go with this.
I do. Do you want me to bring up that graphic for you?
Sure, bring it up.
Here we go. So these are some of the better known. Let me just get rid of our banner here just because that's blocking the bottom there. These are some of the better known champions that held that particular version of the AWA Heavyweight Championship. Except
in the bottom right-hand corner, Hogan didn't actually. He won it, but they reversed the decision. And there was we could do an episode on this.
Mm-hmm.
There was a whole travesty behind this that Vern Gagne wanted Hulk Hogan's Japanese royalty money, as well as some other stuff. The negotiations were going sideways.
Mm-hmm.
He was humming and hawing about, should I put the belt on him? No, he left it on Nick Bockwinkel, who, nothing against Nick Bockwinkel, one of the best in-ring workers ever.
Who is the wrestler in the top left corner of the graphic?
Yeah. For those of you kids that didn't know, yes, it was twice Ben Walker. That could have changed wrestling. If Vern Gagne had the foresight to put this on him while Hulkamania was just starting to brew after Rocky 3, it could be like, what did he say?
He said, you look like you just got your ass kicked with a title on your shoulder and a black eye.
Yeah, well.
Looks like you just got out of the match.
Yeah, I kind of feel like I did. It could have changed wrestling for all we know. AWA could have become something much, much larger had Hulk Hogan and
so they had a no over the top. You weren't allowed to throw your opponent over the top rope in the AWA, and you could actually be disqualified for doing it. And so Bockwinkel had gotten Hogan in a sleeper hold. Hogan backed up to try to throw him off of him, and he ended up throwing him over the top rope in the process of doing that, which is what justified the DQ.
Yeah. It happened twice. Ben Walker mentioned Ben's a huge AWA guy, Ben
All
Walsh is
right.
part of it. Yeah, me and Ben have talked a lot about wrestling. Ben's another guy that I met through the hobby that I've become good friends with.
We're going to have to get Ben on here for some time because Ben's got an amazing collection of belts, and he is a historian of wrestling knowledge, both Japanese and and North American. So, Ben, if you're willing, we'd love to have you on sometime.
Yeah, Ben, we'd love to have you on. You beat me to it. I was just going to say that. Great minds think alike. Yeah, no, he does. And Ben, growing up in Chicago, mentioned to me that he watched AWA more than anything else. Right. So it's really cool because, we have friends from the South who were NWA guys, and then you have people that were WWF guys. But to hear somebody is like, no, I was AWA. Like that was my jam, right? Like that was my thing. It's really cool. It's really because they were huge. Like, the Road Warriors and Mr. Perfect. Yeah.
Oh, well, I mean, the Minnesota wrestling scene, essentially, it was most of if you look back at the 80s, the top stars in the 80s and the early 90s, a large percentage of them came out of that out of Grandma B's and that Minnesota scene. Kurt Hennig, Mr. Perfect, Ravishing Rick Rude, the Road Warriors, of course. You can make it. Yeah,
they're both trained.
The Iron Sheik, Ric Flair, Ricky Steamboat. I mean, it's a who's who of wrestling stars that came out of that training camp and out of that area.
So this big beast I'm going to put down. This is a beast. Like it's the biggest belt I own. It might be the heaviest belt I own. I might actually get another one made because this one looks really nice on display, but I can't wear it.
Oh, that's awesome, Ben. We'll message you and get in touch with you really soon, and we'll set up a time that works in your schedule.
Yeah, absolutely. That'd be great.
So yeah, on this poster here, just a few notables. Obviously, Bockwinkel in the top left corner, Vern Gagne himself, who was the owner of the AWA, and then we of course had Rick Martel.
Great
in
Canadian.
the bottom left corner, great Canadian champion who made his bones in the Montreal wrestling scene, but really broke into the American scene in the AWA. Then we have Jumbo Tsuruta, who is, if you're a fan of All Japan Pro Wrestling, he was a very well-known and well-respected wrestler in All Japan Pro Wrestling. And it's actually his name that is on the 2018 version of the Triple Crown belt that All Japan still uses to this day. Of course, the ever famous Stan Hansen and his deadly lariat, and then of course Hulk Hogan, who we were just talking about.
It's my Stampede belt is bigger. It is bigger, but it's very inaccurate or inaccurate. Where the AWA one is huge and accurate, I believe. Anyways,
yeah.
One thing about Stan Hansen. So actually, two things about Stan Hansen. Apparently, his eyesight wasn't the best. So when he clotheslined you, he really clotheslined you. That's what I heard. I'm not.
Yeah, I've watched a few clips of Stan's clotheslines, and he's not even trying to look at people. He's just taking heads off.
Yeah,
I don't think it had anything to do with his eyesight.
Well, that's just what I heard. I think Hogan mentioned it because
he said it himself in a few interviews, but I think he's just taking heads off.
Yeah, he was in wasn't he in one of Hogan's movies with him? I can't remember.
Yeah, he might. I think he might have been. Ben is saying he is legally blind. LOL. Yeah, no, for sure. I definitely think he had some eyesight issues, but I also think he was just taking heads off.
So was it Stan Hansen that was dropping the belt? Was he dropping it to Nick Bockwinkel or was it to Rick Martel that led him?
I want to say I'd have to look at that again myself, but I think it was Ben. Ben can probably tell us in the comments, but I think it was to Martel.
And he was pissed off at what having to do it, so he drove over the belt with a truck.
Right.
With the
right.
truck, and that's what led them to go back to using the prior version
of it. Yeah. And I don't know if people realize that I'm sure I know Ben and quite a few collectors in our audience tonight would know the answer to this, but do you know why it's called the inmate title? This particular version is referred to as the inmate title for those that don't know.
Because it was made in a prison.
It was literally made by penitentiary prisoners in Denver, Colorado in 73, 74.
That
So it was,
that you knew where it was made is phenomenal.
yeah.
Yeah.
So that's awesome. So it was made in Denver, Colorado in a penitentiary. And it was actually just a lot of sheet metal that was cut and layered together. So
You know what? I love it. And there's something interesting too. I think it was when Rick Martel and Ric Flair were going to have a match against
there we
each other.
go. Ben is confirming.
It was made in a prison in Colorado where he lives. There's a photograph of Rick Martel holding the AWA title, and Ric Flair has the NWA World title.
Mm-hmm.
The 10 pounds.
I've seen that picture. Yeah.
And the AWA title just absolutely dwarfed it, right? So that's what led the NWA to be like, okay, this is ridiculous. We're getting a bigger belt, and that's what led them to go
to the big gold,
to the Crumrine, to go to Crumrine Jewelers to have the big gold made, and they wanted to have the biggest, nicest looking belt, which they did.
Which is also what led the WWE from the Winged Eagle to the Big Eagle, because the big gold came out and it was time to up the ante over there. So it's been a belt pissing match for a lot of years.
Yeah.
Everybody's trying to outbig everybody. So that's awesome.
That is awesome.
Which is good for us, for belt fans and collectors. That's a great thing because that usually leads to better belts. So
absolutely.
All right. So we're moving on to our next segment in the program. So another segment that we like to do every week is a quiz. One of the big things that sort of I think is unique to our page is we offer daily and weekly quizzes. And so we like to sort of give a little taste of that during the podcast. And so here we go. All right, so we'd love for anybody that's watching live with us tonight, we'd love for you to take part if you're willing and able. So the first quiz for this evening is going to be a who's behind the curtain. So the premise of this is that I'm going to give you a list of belts, and you're going to tell me who you think the wrestler is based on the championships they are known for winning. So on this particular list, we have the NWA World Heavyweight Championship, of course. We have the WWF Intercontinental Championship, the WWF Tag Team Championship, the BCW Tag Team Championship, the SAPW Heavyweight Championship. These last two are sort of the giveaways, I think. The UFC Super Fight Championship and the King of Pancrase Championship. Who do you think this wrestler is?
YouTube watcher Oldhead has answered.
Oldhead is telling us he thinks Ken Shamrock. Ben Walker very quickly also wrote Ken Shamrock. What do you think? Who are you thinking? Who are you going to go with there?
I want to know what the BCW is, because I've never heard of the BCW or the SAPW.
You're about to see a picture of it in a minute.
Sweet.
All right. Oh, Facebook user also, Shamrock maybe. Very good. Facebook user, if you want to give StreamYard permission to recognize you, we can actually see your name in the comments. Thanks for hanging out with us tonight. And thanks also, Oldhead, for hanging out and participating.
Yeah, thank you for everyone who's watching. We're thankful.
We love it. We love it.
We're very thankful. StreamYard. Yeah, allow StreamYard to
see your name.
Who you are.
All right, so I will throw up the answer. It looks like we got a couple of correct answers tonight. Of course, we're talking about the world's most dangerous man, Ken Shamrock, famous for winning the NWA World Heavyweight Championship, the Intercontinental Championship, WWF, the BCW Tag Team Championship, the SAPW Heavyweight Championship, the UFC Super Fight Championship specifically, and the King of Pancrase Championship. So those two bottom belts sort of set him apart for sure.
Where did he win the NWA title?
The NWA champion, he was the inaugural Impact TNA champion. So when Impact or TNA had the arrangement with the NWA initially when they launched a pay-per-view, Shamrock was the first person they put the belt on. And so he won the NWA World Heavyweight Championship during that pay-per-view.
Was he in TNA after his WWE run?
Yep. He was there after. So he jumped from the WWE back to the UFC to do his big trilogy fight with gosh, I'm not thinking of Tito Ortiz.
Yep.
And then jumped from there back to TNA Impact and became the NWA World Champion.
That's awesome. I did not know that. That is cool.
Yeah, so he is one of many NWA champions. So congratulations to everybody at home playing along. Thank you very much. I have one more quiz. This one's going to be pretty easy for wrestling fans, I think. This one is sort of an example of our daily quizzes that we do in our group, World Champions Belt Club. This one is Guess the Wrestler. So what I'm going to do is give you some information, 3 sort of factoids about the wrestler, and see if you can come up with who it is. This one isn't too hard, I don't think. So I'll add that in here. This wrestler started off with a background in amateur wrestling, was trained by Vern Gagne in the Iron Sheik, and debuted in Gagne's AWA, which we were just talking about a minute ago. Wasn't until he moved to Championship Wrestling from Florida that he got his famous name, which was suggested by promoter Eddie Graham because he resembled a well-known Hawaiian wrestler. Before long, he would go to Jim Crockett Promotions, where he'd become a 3-time NWA United States champion and have his first major encounters with Ric Flair. He would then later sign with the WWE in '85, adopting a nickname and wearing a karate-style gear to play up his Japanese heritage. In late '86, he had a title shot at Randy Savage Intercontinental Championship, which turned into a full-on feud. And their WrestleMania bout would not only be a show stealer, but would rank among the best WWE matches of all time. Good evening, Max. Thanks for hanging out, buddy. Thanks for joining us. After leaving WWE in 1988, he would resurface in WCW the following year as a surprise partner of Eddie Gilbert, and he would pin Flair in the process. This would lead to a title feud with Flair for the NWA World title and a classic trilogy of matches at Chi-Town, Rumble, and Clash of Champions. Who is this wrestler? Can you guess at home? Daniel, thanks for joining us, buddy. Ricky the Dragon Steamboat.
You are correct.
Daniel is correct. We have Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, well known, famous for his match with Randy Macho Man Savage, of course, and even more famous for his trilogy match with Ric Flair over the NWA Championship in WCW.
That's awesome. I actually, we'll do. I love that. Those 3 matches he had with Ric Flair were phenomenal.
Oh, I still watch them. Still watch them maybe once every couple of weeks. Still just an amazing trilogy. So.
I need to watch the trilogy. I need to watch all 3.
Yeah.
Max McCall asked what happened to my eye. We talked about it at the opening of the show, Max. You're going to have to go back and watch. You're going to have to go to the beginning of the show and watch. I'm not telling you.
So, Tony, it's that time. We're going to pull up Collector's Corner, and it's time to maybe do a little LJN figure goodness.
Sounds.
All right. So, what have you got for us tonight, my friend?
I don't know. I don't know how to say it. I have Andre the Giant. I'm going to talk about Andre the Giant. Now, this figure, he had 3 figures in the LJN line. The first was the 70s style hair, and they didn't do the best job with this Andre. So what they did was they came back about a year later with the face Andre, the one that would have wrestled at WrestleMania 2 in the Body Slam match. Actually touched his face up and his hair up and made him a little shinier. Now, this one was the second figure they made. So they did the first one, the second one, and the third one, and now this one was only released in Canada. It was the black strap Andre the Giant.
Right. So this is our WrestleMania 3 Andre and going forward. Yeah.
And you can see the stamp on the foot, which shows that this is legit, because I'm going to show you guys something here. So I had this Andre in the first one. I didn't have a black strap. My brother just gave this to me. This figure alone, this guy right here, could go for anywhere between $500 to $1,000 Canadian.
Woo-wee.
Crazy. The others, this one's probably about an $80 figure. And
what is that like? That's like $2 American.
something like that.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
So I didn't have a blackstrap Andre, so what I did was I got the blue shorts. They call it the short hair blue trunk
Okay.
Andre, and I made my own blackstrap Andre.
Oh, nice.
But now that this is a real no-no because I could sell that for a lot of money. So what I did was to keep my integrity. I kept the bottom of his feet blue. So if I was to ever resell this, I could say, no, this isn't a blackstrap Andre. It is a blue, because the collectors will look for that stamp on the blackstrap Andre. Wow. That's what they call him. These came out. These were in the 1989 run by it was Titan Sports, but they were only released in Canada. They were called the Black Card figures, and those figures are super expensive. So here's what this is what he looks like, and this is one I just custom painted. Their skin tones are a bit different, I noticed.
Yeah, so yeah, definitely more of a sandy sort of more of a tan color on your left. So
yeah, so the one here that I painted, I did this all freehand. I did the strap freehand. There was no stencils. There was nothing to use.
Wow, nice job, man.
Yeah, so I have 2 black straps, but yeah, there you have it.
Good evening, Man Up. Thanks for hanging out with us, buddy. Good to see you.
So yeah, my daughters love Andre. My middle daughter Kelsey absolutely loves Andre the Giant. She's seen me watch a lot of his stuff, and I actually have. I'm just gonna grab one thing here and I'll show you.
Yeah, grab it. Go for
Andre the Giant. I should have brought it over when we started, but I didn't. And it is this cool piece right here of Andre the Giant. This
yeah.
Piece, the WrestleMania 3, where they came out. He's not opened. I wasn't going to open him. He's a collector's piece because he was an absolute legend. He sits over there beside my Macho Man from WrestleMania 3, and they're staying unopened.
Sweet. Nice job, man. Love it.
How you doing, buddy?
Love it. Well, we have one more segment to go into tonight before we wrap it up. This is a segment we use kind of infrequently. We don't use it every week, but we thought this was a good time to use it. So we like to call this little segment our soapbox. Yeah, so this is a segment we'll use infrequently every now and then when something comes up that we feel like is worth talking about, either in the wrestling hobby or in the belt hobby itself. Tony was the lucky recipient of a very interesting text today, so I thought I'd pull that up on the screen if that's cool with you, Tony.
Absolutely, sure way.
So Tony received a text this afternoon from a Johan Turner. Johan wrote, "Hello, sir. How are you?" Tony wrote, "I'm good. My apologies, but how do I know you?" Tony, very ever polite, asked. And Mr. Johan Turner replied with, "Sir, I am wrestling belts maker." And which quickly resulted in a block from Tony, understandably.
Yeah.
So what do you think, Tony?
I just, I checked the guy's account out, and I saw that it didn't go back very far. He messaged Ben Walker.
Cedric got hit.
Yeah.
Ben Walker got hit. I myself got hit this afternoon as well.
I just find,
Old Head says sounds legit to me. Man up got the same message from the same guy. So I'm not saying, let me just put this out here again. I'm not saying that we all can't drop the occasional letter A in "Sir, I am a wrestling belts maker." I'm saying it happens. We all, sometimes we type with our thumbs. It happens to everybody. But a good giveaway that you're talking to somebody where English is not a first language is when they drop these ever important words in the grammar or in the conjugation of the sentence. It's becoming pretty common practice nowadays, and I'm not sure why, but it's becoming pretty common practice for some overseas makers to create what present as North American Facebook accounts to initiate conversations about belt sales and also in some cases to scam. One other website that's been on a lot of people's lips lately, Facebook group, is a very notorious group called Wrestling Belt Sell and Buy Group. Yeah, man up, absolutely, man up. We agree. This is one you definitely want to kind of keep your eye on and be careful of if you are out there sort of jumping around to different belt groups. This one has been flagged in numerous groups for numerous reasons. They are posting belts that people own and posting them as their own to sell. There's clearly a lot of scamming happening in this group, so you really, really, really want to be careful with this. Wrestling Belts Sell and Buy group. We're seeing a lot. There's been a huge increase in the number of scams that are happening in the belt hobby in particular over the last 6 months, 7 months. This stuff seems to come in waves, and this seems to be a particularly large wave. The fact that these guys like Mr. Johan Turner, the fact that they're just sort of blanket trying to sort of message people without any kind of sort of any connection to the people at all. He's just throwing a very wide net and trying to hook anybody they can. Just protect yourselves. Try to deal with makers that you know. Try to deal with people that have a good reputation. Try to sort of spend time in groups and watch conversations. Watch people who are presenting good work and consistently selling belts and consistently delivering belts. Be careful of those conversations with people that just sort of jump into your account and try to DM you and sort of initiate conversations. That doesn't usually turn out very well. Just be careful, protect yourself. There's a lot of good in this hobby, and there's a lot of really great makers and a lot of really, really great fellow hobbyists and people that will help you out and will give you all the information you need. Talking to somebody like Mr. Ben Walker is always a great idea. As well as Man Up and others, Cedric as well in here tonight. These are all really, really experienced collectors. Yes, and then Ben brings up a really good point. Don't believe every scammer group's being made. Also, it's the word scammer gets used really incorrectly and overused a lot, especially lately. So be careful with that, but also protect yourselves and make sure that you know who you're dealing with. And make sure that you follow up and you get references and you know that they have a good reputation. So
yeah, I get it. Like, we don't typically go off on the negative on
good
our
evening,
show.
Johnny. Good evening. Thanks for hanging out.
I think the makers, the people that are over there are trying different things because I don't know. It's just a weird one. Like I know Ben, a lot of the people watching this, yourself included, Jason, that how many makers message you? I get it all the time. I do a new live. I do a new belt day video, and my inbox is like
I get 3 or 4 a day at least, and sometimes more on if I'm doing things publicly more often and I'm being seen in a few different groups, then I tend to get hit harder. So
yeah, when I do my big new belt days and I go do a video and all those different Ben's group and all the different groups, Mark Maggard's group and what have you, they just flood me, sir. I'll give you best prices, sir.
Mm-hmm.
Sir, try me out, try my belts. I'm almost done collecting, and I've learned
man, everybody. I just heard Pakistan just sigh like a huge. That was like you could hear the whole country just went like,
no,
oh my
God. the whole their economy just took a tank.
Oh, let my eye open for me laughing. Oh my God. No, but
say it ain't so. Yeah.
It definitely not going to be at the pace that I was at before, my Lord. But no, and they're just getting creative ways to try and inbox people trying to sell their products. It's their livelihood, right?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, I think we just would rather, I would rather another Muhammad message me and say, hey, I make belts. Would you give me an opportunity? And if I say no, okay, thanks. Don't. And then the worst, though, is when you actually become friends with some of these guys. Like, you add them on your Facebook, and then you message them, bro, when are you going to buy a belt for me? Bro, come on, bro. It's like, dude, I told you, I'm not really, I've got my couple makers I like to use, and I use a lot of different makers. Some have been better than others. But it's like, I don't know, man. It just gets over the top sometimes.
Yep, I hear you.
Yeah.
So, I think we've covered everything we were planning to cover tonight, bud. Do you want to call it a night?
We could call it a night pretty soon.
Yeah.
Do any of you out there watching have any questions for us that don't pertain to me and my black eye? Any other questions? You guys want to shoot the shit about anything before we sign off?
Yeah. Throw a comment up.
Is getting called.
Getting called brother. LOL.
Yeah. Okay, brother.
Okay, brother.
More brother.
Brother. Thank you, Ben. Thanks, buddy.
Yeah, appreciate that, Ben.
We're going to be in touch. We're going to be in touch very soon. We'll message you directly. We'll give you, and we'll try to set something up so you can get on here with us.
Matt Up asked, how many figures do I have? I have the LJN collection. These figures came out between 1984 to 1989 or 1985 to 1989. I have the entire collection other than Haku. Haku is the only black carded figure I don't have. He's about $750, $1,000. I don't have him. But then I also, Man Up, I've made customs. Like there's guys behind me here that were like, and I'll show you in another episode. Like I made Crush out of Greg the Hammer Valentine.
That's awesome. Thanks, Dan. We really appreciate it. Thanks for hanging out with us.
So Manu. I played soccer with a guy from Costa Rica named Manu, and I just called Man Up Manu. Man Up. I don't actually have the number off the top of my head, but I have the entire LJN collection plus the customs that I've made. So it's quite a lot.
Sweet.
I'll find out. I'll do a count when I'm bored one of these days.
Cool. Maybe next week you can tell us what the number is.
Oh, come on. Don't put that pressure on me.
All right. I won't put that pressure on. All right. Well, that's it for us tonight, guys. We really appreciate you guys hanging out with us tonight. And we're going to be here every Monday night here in Champions Belt Club. You can find us in our Facebook page in the group Champions Belt Club. And you can also find us on YouTube. And we'd really, really appreciate it if you clicked like and subscribe so that we can build that audience and continue to grow. We really appreciate you guys hanging out with us tonight. Next week, we've got a guest coming on with us next week. We've got our good friend Joey Gray from the Bells and Belts podcast crew, Man Up, Cedric, and Joey. We're going to have Joey on to join us and hang out for the evening and chat wrestling and collecting and all things that are beautiful about this hobby. And we hope you guys will join us. We can't thank you enough for hanging out. Anything you want to say before we sign off tonight, my friend?
Just thank you, everyone who watches. Thank you to those who subscribe and like it, and those that comment. We just thank you so much, guys, and look forward to growing the show and growing the friendships with the people out there. And we'll see you next Monday night, folks.
Peace.
Peace.